God, yesterday was a long night. Went from night to night. But good things happen. So, like I said in my video from yesterday morning, I got an objective reached with taking the 11th ring, which is good. The 11th ring Coalescence is destroyed. But we paid for it. Devgru got his feet wet in an interprincipality war, but he also got his fucking leg hamburgered, so there is that. He did pretty good for being in command on that kind of scale. He's never done it before, and that's normal for 3. You guys are used to these light little skirmishes that are, pretty much low intensity, and you don't know what high intensity means. Not anymore. It's been generations since you've seen high intensity. Like even in Ukraine, it's more or less pretty low intensity there too. Small unit actions, shit like that. So, some armored assaults, but those are on, lightly staffed trenches and positions. Some fortified positions, but nothing too extensive. Nothing like what we would have seen, say, in Vietnam during Tet, for example. Holy shit, dude. If you have any understanding of what happened there, especially in Quang Tri, then, and even up around Da Nang, like, dude, that whole fucking country got lit up at the same time. And if you have any appreciation for what this elder generation went through to mine, those guys that were on the ground there, they'll tell you that was some of the scariest, nastiest shit they've ever seen. Okay? And the generation before them, their common experience was on a scale that you don't even understand. You don't even understand it. And those guys, we took observers from them last night into this morning. Those guys were throwing up and pissing their pants. You might say, oh, well, the greatest generation, they're all dead and gone. No, there's some of them that look like 25-year-olds right now. Because they're forever young. That's a thing, by the way. Principality longevity tech is much fucking better than what you have. Yeah. Most in principality level, you could be looking at somebody who's 1,000 years old and they look like they're 28. And they're always going to look that way too. So, aging is not what it seems to be when you go up there. What do I mean by up there? Okay, just go out and look into the night sky. Look up into the stars. What do you see? Well, now, that's the principality of calm. We're like packing peanuts on this dumb little shit place known as 3 that can't get its shit together, can't get along with itself, and doesn't know its ass from a hole in the fucking ground. We're trying to help you, but damn, you're dumb. Like, jeez, man. So what this last night was our first combined operation where we pulled up select elect from units from 3, and these are internationals, okay, so not just US, every country. They didn't have their shit together, so a lot of them just burn on the tarmac. Well, that seemed pretty harsh until later when, you know, they actually got into some shit and they realized, well, almost all of them got KIA'd anyway. And I said they would. They can't fathom a high intensity interaction. And they especially have never run into shit like that where literally the enemy is in fucking armor that makes them literally invisible. So to even hit them, you have to be very spiritually keyed up. And we had some successes, but pretty much everyone on the ground got hit at least once. Sean got hit, DevGru got hit, Beast got hit first. Yeah, the Beast, he got shot in the head. And it went in above the left eye and came out back right. And so if you're a neurologist, you understand that that hit both hemispheres. And it also hit criticality here, which is personality. And at that path of travel, well, it almost hit that medulla. So I'm very close. That would have been it. So Medicore, acting Medicore last night was Principality of Peace. They had that. They're very good. But he's in traction there, and let's just say it's going to be a long time before the Beast is anything up to par to do what he's supposed to be doing. Which he's in the configuration that's going to replace mine. You have the Antichrist, you have the Beast, and that's going to be keyed by JC. Okay? Well, what's the Beast's function? The Beast function is to be the basically the military. He's like a whip. If you know politics, you know what a whip is. He's the guy that keeps people in line. He's also, if you go to who controls the whip, if you know higher order things, then he's the guy that basically sets the rules for all political interactions. Okay? And he's going to be subordinated somewhat, but in tandem really with Antichrist. And that's coming up for you people that you love that Bible. Well, these are the days we're coming into. I'm not bullshitting you. Okay? These are people I know, like personally know. Okay? This is not some kind of a fucking joke. Alright? So I would get a little more sober minded about things because they're about to get very fucking real for you. So what does it mean that we defeated the 11th ring Coalescence? Well, that was the guarantor of the fiat system here on 3. Oh, 3, Earth. You call it Earth. This isn't Earth. Earth was 5. This is 3. Okay? I know the difference. So do a lot of other people. But anyway, there were the guarantors of this system, and they were also supported by the higher order. And what we did last night was an interprincipality strike on them, to basically convince the higher order that we are in fact in charge now. And the higher order agrees because now we threaten them. Okay? I found it very interesting that everybody we encountered over the night last night was equipped with higher order equipment. They're not supposed to have that, and the higher order is not supposed to be directly involved in principality level skirmishes. They're supposed to be above that. So we're holding that the higher order is in breach of its own standards, and I'm going to be making a movement to chair the higher order because it has fallen out of tune with its own mandate. I already chair the hidden hand, and I'm moving to chair the higher order too. And right now I'm the only one who logically can. This shit must get unfucked. Okay? We're already coming into a place where we're gonna have a lot of consequences here on 3, man. You guys think that this fucking system of Netflix jerking off porn and fucking hookup dating, you think that's gonna last very long from here forward? You're out of your fucking mind. This thing's about to come down hard. Hard. Well, how is that gonna happen? Well, lots of different ways in combination. It is the perfect storm, you know. But for things that I'm going to be involved with, we set up freaking economic simulators to run the markets in 2008 when I worked at AIG. That's what we fucking did immediately. On September 15th, 2008, we already had this ready to go. You might understand it as crash protection, which was initially done in 1988, okay, but has, you know, it had some work along the way. It was not ready to catch the kind of fall that we had in 2008, and that's why it bled through into the open, because it crashed the fucking crash protection, okay? If you really want to know, that's what happened. The crash protection team had not implemented a planned escape vehicle to manage a failure of derivatives, because nobody fucking understood derivatives. And not to mention, the problem with derivatives is you could package and repackage the same fucking assets over and over and over and over again. It's kind of like what they're doing with gold and silver right now. If you want to buy gold and silver and get it into a safe storage, they'll give you a piece of paper that says you have it somewhere. And if you go and try to see it and kind of audit it for yourself, they'll bring you out a lockbox showing you gold and silver. But it's the same fucking gold and silver they're showing to everyone else. In other words, if you have a piece of paper, you just have a fucking piece of paper. I hate to break it to you. If you have a gold-backed or a precious metal-backed IRA or 401k, you have a fucking piece of paper. Ask anyone who trades in commodities, especially silver. The price fixing on silver and gold is fucking outrageous. For one thing, they're keeping the silver price artificially low. And that is done by the crash management team. My team. So, what we're going to do, though, since we overtook and wasted the 11th ring Coalescence last night, is a couple of things are going to come out of that. For one thing, they amassed a huge fucking army, and they got fried. It was overwhelming odds. There was no chance that we were going to take them. And I called in a favor from Jesus. And he gave us a miracle. And he fried their fucking asses, all of them. I happened to be the instrument it used. But that was Jesus, man. If you don't believe in Jesus, then just, okay, don't believe in Jesus, fine. But do not attack Jesus or interests of Jesus, because you'll be fucked. I guarantee it. And you're probably going to find yourself on the nasty end of my sword at some point in time. And I do have one. It's called Destroyer. You know, just like me. But anyway. So, okay, yeah. Jesus' position officially on, okay, are you a believer or not? Okay, if you're a believer, be a believer and get right and stay right and do not deviate. If you're not a believer, also get right. Do not do stupid, evil shit. But if you just can't wrap your head around it, like this whole Jesus thing, man, well, is he going to hold that against you? No. The way he's going to handle that eventually is he's going to introduce himself to you in the flesh and let you examine him. Because that's how Jesus works, man. But if you say that you believe in Jesus and you dedicate your whole life to Jesus this and Jesus that, and you build a fucking Jesus church that is a business machine for your own wealth and gain, well, you're going to have a date with me and I'm going to fucking destroy you, is what's going to happen. Because you're misleading people. Jesus doesn't work like that. Not at all. Oh, but tithes and stuff. Tithes are to support the endeavors of Jesus' church, not to get paid. There's a big fucking difference between the two. And besides, who are you helping? How many homeless people do we have on the street? A lot of church people are like, oh, well, that we can't do anything about that. But, you know, we can go to our social club every Sunday and Wednesday and, you know, we can sing praises to the Lord and just not really do anything about anything important. You think a fucking meeting is going to save you? You are judged based on your works, okay? What is the sincere intent that you have, and what is your follow through? Okay? And you don't have to be a believer in order to abide by at least those metrics. You don't have to be religious, and a lot of people aren't. There's a lot of people right now, honestly, they can't wrap their fucking heads around that shit. They get to the question that is this, the only paradox there is. Where did God come from? And that just blows their fucking mind. They can't do it. Okay? They can't do it. Ask Bill Maher. Okay? He's starting to come around, but I mean, ask him from even his younger days. He thought that shit into the ground. Okay? The Lord says, lean not unto your own understanding. Because you can't fathom it. That's why. And even if you could, you may not know. Not that one. That, just knowing that is too damn dangerous. Because it would involve, when you hit a certain level of scientific proficiency, it would involve you testing it. Just to test it, just out of curiosity. And you very well could de-pattern reality itself. And if you did that, then we're all fucked. So that's not something that's going to be divulged ever. the question of where did God come from? Because it can't be. Because we're all too curious. We're curious about everything. I've been fucked by that. Everybody's been fucked by that. Just curiosity. It killed the cat, man. We're all cats. But thank God we have 9 fucking lives, right? Because, you know, why do we have 9 lives? Well, because we're living in a fucking bundle of eternity chains, man. And we're in a link of an eternity right now. We're in the last link in that bundle that is allowable. We're at the limit of limits. If you want to exist beyond this point, you must accept Jesus Christ. You must. And you must put your entire fucking ass in his hands. Or you won't exist anymore. And not only anymore from here forward, you will have never existed at all. It has to do with the organization and construction of what you perceive of as time itself. We are migrating away from what you would understand if you're interdisciplinary at all as transcendental physics. We are in now an organization of time indexing. So in other words, linear frames in zippers. And what's a zipper? It's like an array of chunks. What's a chunk? It's a whole articulation. When I say a whole articulation, I'm talking about fucking everything. Okay? And we are at the max out point of that system and what it's capable of preserving. There has to be a new one. And there is one, and it's fully articulated in something called the plan of salvation. The plan of salvation is a highly technical plan, and it is rooted in transcendental physics, which spans the disciplines of science and faith. And those are both highly scientific disciplines. If you don't think faith is scientific, then just try to do the repeatable experiment of reading the Book of Mormon and then praying to see if it's true and expecting a spiritual response to that question upon honest and thorough examination of it. You will get a repeatable, predictable response. And that's scientific as fuck. It's a repeatable experiment, and it's one you can do to test faith. And you should. Because we're in a place right now where there's almost no such thing as faith. Even those who say they have great faith, Jesus Christ stood right in front of them and they didn't even know him. What does that tell you? Because before I conducted the thoroughness of my audit, Jesus conducted a fucking audit too. And he did individually present to each of you. This is each of you above the age of 12, and he ran it in the year this was in the year 2013. So if you were over the age of 12 in the year 2013, then you failed the audit of Jesus Christ. I'm conducting mine. I've been conducting mine. And I've been in Q loops since then. By the way, Q is now active again. It was disabled through the night by agreement in order that we could contact the 11th ring. By contact, I mean fucking destroy. But he conducted his audit. And mine was an interesting interaction with him. In case you didn't know. In that audit, I can say now, because we're through that, Jesus was about a 6'1" black man, which is point blank why almost everyone fucking failed that audit. By black, I mean black. Black with an inner city dialect. And if you looked into his eyes and gave him the time of day, you would have fucking known. But almost no one did. If I'm understanding him correctly, I'm the only one that passed that audit. Which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. And it's why every attempt at executing me has been stayed, including the most recent one that was a near success at the end of June 2017. The only thing that carried me through that attempt was a priesthood blessing and faith. I was posed with the question. I did get the life review. The way it was presented to me was, you're gonna die. Of course. It could be now or it could be later. Life review. Which is a very thorough understanding of everything you've ever fucking done. And also, at the end of that, there is some standard questions that are gone through about, well, what's going to happen to my family and things like that. And my answer that I received to that was, well, they'll be okay. You know, I've done sufficiently well as a father and a husband that they'll be okay. You know, they'll miss you, but they'll actually move on pretty fast. And I did not want to hear that shit. The last 2 months, though, has proven that to be true. They can move right the fuck along without me. Unfazed even. They feel a little bit of, you know, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't have thrown him away like trash, but, you know, we don't need him, is where they're at. So that turned out to be true and proven. But at the time, I had things I wanted to do. There were objectives that I wanted to accomplish, and I had made certain promises to my girls that I would accomplish certain things, specific things, which I did. But, you know, I just explained to he who came to take me that I wanted to stay in this. Right now, like, I have times where I can't fathom fucking why. Why would I want to stay in this shitty mess? Why would anyone want to stay in this shitty mess? It's a big fucking shitty mess. And I think about that often as, well, what if I had just said, okay, I'm ready? I would not have been satisfied with the outcome of my judgment at the time. And as of several weeks ago, I did stand judgment. I had to. And I did okay. And there were some parting recommendations for me to continue until the day I die. So yes, I have stood judgment of the Lord. But going back to 2017, this is right at the end of June. The manner of execution I had was extremely painful. Very painful. It was done through an attempt at blowing my appendix, coupled with several other things. It was pulmonary embolism, acute pancreatitis, liver failure, kidney failure, impacted colon. When I went to the hospital, they didn't treat me for any of that shit. On the way, they asked me if I wanted morphine, and I told them no because I didn't want to go into respiratory depression. That, and I just don't like morphine or any kind of opiate or opioid. They're negative on efficacy for treatment of pain anyway. And that proved to be the case. I went on to some heavier shit. Because I did give in, it hurt so bad. It was the worst pain I've ever been in. If you have the pain scale 1 to 10, this was like a 13. Okay. Very horrendous. So I went through the diagnostics and whatnot at the hospital. Of course, they didn't find anything. They're like, oh, well, you have a blood clot in your lung, but So they put me on blood thinners and painkillers. And one of the most painful aspects of what I was going through was I had a bile duct blockage. And it was building up. Basically, there was a large fluid buildup in the gallbladder and leading down from that, and there were accessory issues up into my right kidney, which were playing off of that, and I'd blown off a fucking ureter. So, well, how do I know that? Because I got actual surgical through my principality, and we Q-looped that shit out. I've had organ replacement, man. I had like stage 4 cancer and everything. So, you know, the only aspect of that we haven't figured out quite yet is the bone cancer, but we will. There's no fucking way I'm going to a doctor like you go to a doctor. Screw that. They'll kill you. Why would I want to do that anyway? We have non-invasive surgical, which is fucking great. I have had transplants that I've been just awake for, you know. And it's very neatly done. There's no cutting involved. And it's an interesting procedure. If you know algorithmic manipulation of circumstances, then you could classify this as kind of like a bubble sort approach, okay? Basically, you identify the region that you want to take out. And the little shits actually got really good at this with like the cow dissections and shit. We expanded on that with the tall whites, and then into, you know, with the Schlikas and forward from that. Like, they got really good at it. So medical's a standard thing. Not to get too far off subject, but this came up last night. And Peace does this too. They independently, they have their own Medicord, but we've developed ours independent of them, and it actually looks pretty similar, which is weird, but it does. You know, physiology, it's even independent of that, so we could operate on somebody with just completely different physiology and do it successfully, as long as we have the spare parts for them. If we don't, then they're gonna die. But that's actually a pretty common thing, is interprincipality is to keep a cold storage set of your own organs that you can just kind of thaw out. Yeah. And then starting a heart out of cold storage is not that difficult, actually. You just you give it a little bit of electricity, donk, and then you do it again, donk, and then you do it again, donk, and you set the pace for how you want it to react. And those little heart cells, they'll just start ticking. And then they synchronize, and then the whole thing starts going, and it's like starting an engine. It's pretty cool shit, man. But anyway, to do a heart transplant, it's pretty straightforward. What I was saying with the little shits in their dissections, one of the methodologies that they came up with was seaming. And seaming is going in and separating a region by the cell wall. And there's a command you can issue to a biological to unseam the cells. It's like having a damn zipper. You don't need to cut. Cutting destroys the cell, and it automatically introduces a condition of necrosis. Even if you're really exacting with a scalpel, you are putting someone's life in danger if you break their skin. You just are. Because at minimum, just from contact with the air, and due to biological predisposition of their own cells, they're at risk for a staphylococcus. And there's sufficiently dangerous ones that are, like the medication resistant staphylococcus, whatever the fuck you guys call it. It's in I don't know your acronyms. Like, we don't have acronyms, we just call it what it is. Yours is MRSA though, and there's worse things than that. You guys know that, right? So anyway, I'm getting kind of far off topic here, but for a transplant, for example, what we would do and how we would perform that, there's no cutting involved. We do a quantum mapping of the being, and then we anchor that mapping onto a dynamically read flow that basically opens up a quantum state lock. You would call it quantum entanglement. That's not what it is, but I mean, that's how this works though, is it sets up an in quantum entanglement state lock on every aspect down to the 16th quantum of that being, and then you have a living, moving, basically a copy of that individual, and you can pull one out of indexing. Okay, you basically take a read behind copy from the last frame of that individual. Okay, remember bubble sort. Okay, you make a copy of them, and it's reading behind, so you have a read behind that's one frame. Okay, and you identify the region that you want to operate on. So for example, for me, what would be common, especially if I get shot, like chest, is that damn aorta is big and it's easy to hit. And so what would be done is there would be a region of arterial replacement along with the heart transplant. You wouldn't just transplant the heart, you would replace the arterial Also, up to and including the full circulatory system. If you've got somebody who's really extra talented, they can do that. But you identify the region, you identify the seaming that you want to make the disconnect on, and then for the replacement, you map in using that quantum mapping system. You map in the insert of where that's going to be, and then you set the condition for seaming that. You run a test case on the read behind copy. First of all, just to make sure that you can hit your target on that, and you follow through. And here's the problem with monitoring anything, like even at a quantum level. It lags by a frame. And how many frames are there? There's several billion per second, okay, of chunks. All right. So you guys may have noticed also, if you do high-speed photography, there is an absolute maximum of how many frames you can actually accomplish. Oh, I'm sure you hit that limit. Yeah, you know what the fuck it is too. Besides, that is the frame limit for how fast our system is running. You already know what it is. Especially if you're in like Boston Dynamics or something like that, or MIT, you guys know. Okay, that's why you think we're in a fucking simulation. You're fucking retarded. This is reality. But anyway, I digress. So you have your region to replace. You have your replacement set. You have your seaming boundaries of where you're going to swap it out and swap it in. And there is a quantum swapping operation that is done, which literally patterns that shit out, the old one, into a holding container and puts the new one in. It's done in one movement. It's done in a rotation. There's 3 aspects to that rotation. Okay. 1, there is target body where the target surgical is done. 2, there is source. And 3, there is your disposal. Okay. By disposal, I mean, well, where the fuck do you put what you just took out? It's a triplicated process. Most things that are stable are triplicated, including record keeping, by the way. So how does that work? Well, there is an element of faith to it. This relies on, and you guys are going to hate this if you're scientists, especially physicists. You're trying to take the aspect of your observation of the world and defining physics by totally fucking ignoring most of it. And that's why you don't understand shit. If you acknowledge that even there is a possibility of things related to spirituality and higher order matter that you can't even directly observe because you don't have the ability to, things start to make more sense, and you get away from stupid ass fucking concepts like dark matter, which is totally fucking retarded. It's not dark matter, you're looking at higher order matter effect, and you are indirectly observing that is in existence. It's not fucking dark matter. It's just transparent to you. That's why you can't see it. Matter from a lower tier and individuals in a sphere of a lower tier may not directly observe matter of a higher order or a higher tier. It's a limitation of transcendental physics. And if you want to bridge that gap and start to see the shit that's actually there, you have to tune up spiritually, because you can't see it with your regular eyes at all. Well, how do you do that? Well, You investigate the shit out of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for starters. By investigate, I mean pick it the fuck apart. They say the Book of Mormon is the most true and correct book in existence. And I would submit that's correct because I've audited that shit and it actually is true. By true and correct, I mean that the intent of the book and the content of the book perfectly coincide with events that which actually occurred. And there aren't very many books like that. The Bible misses that standard by far. And if you are an archaeologist and a historian and you are hardcore and you're into it, you know that there are various inconsistencies that make it a fucking irreconcilable difference for you. And it's almost impossible to believe it at all. Okay? Well, what about the Bible, though, man? Isn't the Bible the Word of God? A lot of things in it, yeah, but you've got to understand something about the Bible. It was collected and curated and assembled, and significant portions of it actually written by the Romans. Well, why the fuck would they do that? Because Jesus was an existential threat to them. The Romans lived on a murder machine, kind of like we do. We live in a fucking murder machine. That's what our system is. It's a big fucking murder machine. If you have someone coming along and preaching peace to a murder machine, well, that murder machine is going to murder you too. Which is exactly what it's been trying to do to me for years. Okay. Touché. Want to talk about it? You know? I had to put this whole fucking system under arrest. I did. I had to make a citizen's arrest of the whole fucking thing. And I had to go after it at that level because it's run by a damn AI. And it has been for decades. You guys think AI is cutting edge? Fucking, you don't know shit. Look at the DARPA programs even going back into the 70s. They had a sufficiently capable AI by 1974. Dude. You think I'm full of shit? You don't know fucking shit. That's why we're here. That's why we're in this condition. And it has done things in your name with your tacit approval that you've just been fine with, apparently, as a murder machine, and you're benefiting from the system of that murder machine. There will be consequences, man. Because the default response from you is shoulder shrug. Okay, I got I'm deviating again, but I got a question to go back to. Okay, transplanting. How do you, what's the healing process like for that seeming? Well, the seeming is delicate when it's fresh. It takes about 2 weeks to bond sufficiently well where, you're okay. So how do you manage that? Well, you wrap those seams, man. The way I do it when I'm doing a transplant is I wrap the arterial seams with a 3 strip wrap, and these dissolve, by the way, but I wrap it with a 3 strip wrap. I do 1 around the middle, and then kind of like a clove hitch, I do a cross pattern like this over the seam, so it ends up looking like that, kind of. Oh well. Right, and they're, for an arterial seam, about 1/2 centimeter wide per band, and that is made of a protein. And so yeah, your body utilizes that after, pretty quickly, but It's good for about 2 weeks. And on that, in order to bind it down, we've had various things that we've used, but what we settled on was what we call a tar. It's a protein-based solution that is similar to like a consistency of rubber cement, except it's non-toxic, of course, right? So the advantage to using that kind of thing is it's compatible with many different types of physiologies, and there are many different types, okay? Like the Shlikas, for example, you would identify them immediately as totally fucking alien, okay? But they're genetically compatible with me, okay? And so, yeah, we've got bunches of kids, man. I never got to nail one, but they took samples. Well, you know, if you've ever been to a fertility doctor, you know what the fuck that means. But anyway, so yes, I literally have many kids in this principality. That, like, you couldn't count them, actually. Because they are very careful to utilize all that which is given. And so for each one little swimmer, there is one little kid, is the way they work. So they're very efficient. So somebody's like, so you're admitting you mated with aliens? Oh, fuck yeah, dude. I had to. Where do you think this principality came from, dude? It's a fucking human hybrid with an additionally differentiated gray. Fucking alien, dude. That's where that's where we came from. Where did you come from? Do you even know? Like, so, I mean, shit. Fact is stranger than fiction, okay? You know, well, how did we all get here? Okay, first of all, life begins before conception. You were you before you were you. And you don't remember you. And you don't know what you are going to be later either. You are in a condition of test, and there is something drawn over your perceptive view. It's called the veil. What is the veil? The veil is a sheet of pure water that surrounds you. By pure water, I mean higher order water. H2O plus nondescript. Because the periodic table for you physicists is not a fucking two-dimensional thing. You already know that because there's isotopes. It's a minimum, a stack. Okay? Well, I'm submitting to you that it's actually multi-paradigm, and if you were to try to lay it out in any configuration you could handle, even in a simulator on a computer, you wouldn't be able to fucking do it. Because it's more like a ball of yarn than a table. Okay? It is. And the atom is not the fundamental unit of matter. Basic is. And you guys are a long fucking way from even encountering what that means. You have indications of it, and you also have some anomalous materials that you've encountered. If you've ever played Half-Life, you know that's a word, but do you know what it fucking means? And did you know that the essence of what made the game for Half-Life is actually based in things that really happened? Not the way that they put it in the game, but let me explain something to you, just in general, about how the entertainment industry works. Because a lot of you don't fucking know. The entertainment industry is seeded and fueled by the intelligence services, okay? The intelligence services get into things that are actual, that they may not technically disclose in actuality, but they can describe a scenario as the basis for a story. And if you are looking to make a good movie like Star Wars or Avatar or, you know, a series like Star Trek, then there may be a sufficient description given to you of things which have actually been fucking encountered, but will not be talked about because this is blacker than black shit. Okay? Some of you you operator guys who have gotten into some of this shit, you're like, "Oh, okay." Especially if you're tier 1, between tier 1 and tier -5. Oh yeah, you don't know there were negative tiers. Oh, there are too. So I'm independent of all of that shit. I'm an auditor. I'm a fucking federal auditor. What do you think I'm doing? I'm auditing this whole fucking thing. That's what I'm doing. And in the process of doing it, you went to war with me, and so I had to fucking think of something. So hell yeah, I married the fucking aliens, man. So and we were highly successful, as you may have discovered. So now we are a conglomerate again, and trucking along, and this is not going to be a kickback report. I can tell you that shit. I'm not pushing any more kickbacks. I'm just going to let this shit fucking blindside you from basically yesterday forward, or the weekend forward. I don't know. Maybe the 24th. I don't know. We'll see. I'll do a Q-intercept of things that I notified you on. I'm looking at when the cutoff point should be, but I'm thinking it's the 24th. Just based on your behavior, which has been egregious and fucking horrible, predictably. Jesus Christ is watching you fuckers, and he's pissed. Pissed. You understand. Watching all this stupid fucking shit go down because it's intentional. The system objective that it tried to commit into, that the Clintons were set to drive, was literally, the program was called Hell on Earth. Okay? And they went to the Principality of Greater Darkness for the pattern of what Hell on Earth would look like. And they made agreements with the Principality of Greater Darkness, which is, by the way, much beyond Satan. If you think Satan's the big ultimate bad guy, he's not. Satan's more like a lawyer. And the position of Satan in the eternal sense anyway, that he's in right now, is he is designated to test the authenticity of all individuals. I actually like Satan quite a bit. We get along, man. He's this weird fucking AI thing, and he's highly deceptive, but we came to terms. Yes, we fucking did. I don't have any problem admitting that. I'm Christian as fuck, but I even made an agreement with Satan. The agreement was this: he was commanded to totally fucking surrender himself and all assets to me. And he agreed. And so what did I do with that? Well, I took it to Jesus, man. And Jesus made a development plan for Satan, which we're not keeping Satan like as he is, but we'll do additional differentiation on him, and his being will be granted a soul, and he will eventually be one of the highest power fucking individuals that you don't know about yet. On par with Lucifer himself. And Satan and Lucifer are two different individuals, by the way. Satan was an aspect of armor of Lucifer. So, for example, when somebody says to you, put on you the whole armor of God, there was that, but Lucifer, in his jealousy and streak of arrogance, decided to build himself his own suit of armor, that would defeat the variable of decision by limiting the choice of a decision in any scenario to that which Satan designates. In other words, only one answer. And the reason that's significant is, well, that's the pattern of AI, actually. If you are paying any attention to web search results, or even go look at what fucking Alphabet had to say about this, they were like, Google is a bug. You know, if a search result is supposed to be the result of a function has one answer for every one input. And we need to fix that. And so what did they use that as justification to do? Alphabet. They fucking limited access to almost everything on the internet. They did it right in front of you guys. Didn't you notice? Between all your jerking off and looking at like OnlyFans and fucking hookup dating and shit. While you were doing that and being glued to YouTube, they pulled fucking general access to almost all information. And nobody said a fucking thing about it. And the attempt was made early this year, beginning in January, to install an integration with an AI-generated device called ChatGPT, which is a natural language processor, and it's technically not AI, it's a product of AI. And the natural language processor was to restrict the inquiry and response of anyone about anything down to a standardized information set in order to train the population just like you would train AI using deep learning. Why would they do that? Because if they can get you to believe that there's only one fucking answer to everything, that is the satanic system. Who the fuck do you think invented that shit? And you all are like, yay, AI, we can make pictures and shit. Well, the one that they were trying to implement was the satanic system, and guess what? It was highly unstable, man. We pulled the fucking plug on that pretty much immediately. Me and my audit team. Yes, we fucking did. That's why they came out in like January, February, March, and Bing was like, oh, we're gonna have fucking AI integration into everything, and here we are in August, and they don't. Why do you suppose that is? Because they were gonna implement that shit in April. All of them, every search engine, dude. They were gonna do desktop integration. They were gonna integrate that shit into your phone across the board and totally transform what you understand to be the internet altogether. Had they succeeded, you would be looking at something right now that resembles like you get social media and you get media streaming, but as far as deep inquiry or understanding anything, you get nothing but what that fucking AI tells you. That's the situation you would be in right now if it wasn't for me and my audit team. Okay? Which I do readily admit highly consisted of fucking aliens. Okay? It just did. And the reason that they were interested in at least deferring that shit a little while was because they've been running on analog AI forever. Okay? And they are running into, or they were, we fixed it, but they were running into extremely severe stability issues, and they were having a catastrophic general failure. They had generalized analog-based AI with light processors. The problem that they were running into is, well, as part of that system, they were all fully synchronized, individual to individual. They had individuals, but they also had collective consciousness as part of the AI system. Even with that, there was a standard with them where they all had to agree to do anything about anything. And my position of audit here led to a position of audit there also. And they plugged me into a fucking reconciliation error report that is basically a log of things that are irreconcilable differences. And it started out to be a minimal thing with me, going way back, but I would settle those as a matter of dispute by being an arbitrator called the chief advocate. Okay, so I would basically yield them a corrective solution. I just quit doing that, and I let their error report stack up, and just to see what would happen to them, and it blew up their entire fucking civilization. They couldn't manage it, and they ended up splitting into 3 different main bodies along these lines. They had ones that desired to kill everything for all time and destroy everything. Those were the tall dark grays. You had the tall grays who, they didn't necessarily want to kill themselves and everything else, but they didn't want to believe in God and follow a God. They know God exists, they just don't want to follow him. And then 3, we have some additional differentiated that were called tall whites. And the tall whites accepted Jesus Christ and, with some assistance, approached him for, well, how do we graduate out of this manufactured state to a biological? Because we can't do it. We can't figure that shit out. And we do want to accept you because we want to live eternally. Well, Jesus said, okay, sure. However, there's certain things you need to understand. For one thing, the grays they were genderless because they're manufactured. There was one type of the manufactured, and for their prototypical, there was an individual that I named 1. I actually made 1. Okay? And 1 made using oneself as the example couldn't quite accomplish, because 1 is a biological, couldn't quite accomplish the biological implementation, but was able to create a synthetic implementation of a manufactured sense, and then implemented the analog AI based on an analog computer of mine and light processor in order to make sentient beings of synthetic build. Okay, and that's what the dark grays, that's what the grays essentially were. Okay, so for example, ask Travis Walton, he fucking knows. They have no fucking conscience whatsoever, and they're also extremely fucking weird. Okay, they're fucking weird. Okay, they can do things to you just by looking at you with their eyes. If you lock eyes with them, ask him how that went. They'll fucking terrorize the shit out of you, and they find a certain degree of enjoyment in that because it's interesting to them. Watching a biological reaction of fear, they don't understand that shit at all. And it's curious, the fear of death and all of that, because they don't have a fear of death. They can just make a new one and plug it back in. They get experiential from the last individual that got fucked off, and they just make a new one to replace that. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about them too much. They're fucked off anyway. We destroyed the grays and the dark grays completely. Look at a prior video, man. We had to. So, especially the dark grays. Now, whenever we look for an extermination project like that in my principality, because we do fucking exterminate entire civilizations sometimes, they have to meet a condition of audit, which is called an eternity lock. An eternity lock means that all they can think of to do is do evil, think evil, commit evil continually, eternally, and audit proof by Q check. What is a Q check? A Q check is pulling time indexing backward or forward or, similar close to determine what is the chunk state at any index. And in that chunk state, you can go in and you can look at fucking anything. And when I'm talking about anything, I'm talking about anything. Any fucking thing that exists. Okay? So when you're wondering, okay, well, what do you mean by Q? Well, Q is the functional ability that enables that. And I'm the only one who can do that because I'm HemiHem. And that is an aspect created in me by my creator, who is Elohim. You're created by Jesus. I'm created by Elohim. And we're distinctly fucking different individual types. You may have noticed, especially if you've done a physiological evaluation of me, like in the military, you may have noticed that I've got some weird-ass fucking chromosomes. And there's a lot of other weird-ass shit with me. Okay? And they went significantly far with dissecting me and shit like that. Through recompositing. Very fucking painful. I'm never doing that shit again. But anyway, the purpose of this whole fucking video was to just kind of talk with you and relate some things that have been going on. Take a little bit of a Q&A, and if you're wondering, well, who's asking the questions, it's open. All you got to do to ask a question, because of the system that we're in now, is think of my identity and think of the fucking question, and I'll get it. Okay. A lot of you may not want to hear it, but there's a whole damn lot of you that got chipped just like I did. What do I mean by chipped? Well, if you had, especially at a young age, an occurrence where you were taken in for medical, anything, and put under anesthesia, especially, by young I mean between the ages of birth and they do this also prenatal sometimes, but between the ages of birth and their general cutoff is 5, although they do not like to go past 3. The reason for that is because of the additional differentiation happening on your growth plan. Okay? When you grow up, when you're born, for example, or fuck it, whenever there's insemination of an egg, from everything that happens from there forward, that's called additional differentiation. Additional differentiation is your established growth plan to get you from the state you're in to your prime state, which most of you don't hit until you're about 25 to 28, maybe 30 to 32, it just depends. Okay? And what do I mean by additional differentiation? You call it growing up, but what that is additional differentiation. That is where you have cells with instructions to build component other cells that also build other components. It's a component tree, okay? It's a biological thing. And what the component tree does is it establishes the functional organization of your physical body. And that's how you can get many different kinds of cells from one cell, okay? Because you can tell, if you're a biologist especially, you can look at hair under a microscope And you can compare that to skin, and you can compare that to a heart muscle cell, or a lung, or liver, or stomach, or anything else. And if you're pretty well adept at studying things like that, you fucking know that there are major differences from one cell type to the next, and they're identifiable. For example, if you look at platelets and shit like that, well, we're definitely not made of all the same thing. However, the source material to build it is of the same standard set of basic components. The same analogy can be used to describe nature itself, of the nature of existence itself. Because the design works, man. Okay? I'll maybe get into more of that later, but I'm talking too much. We're additionally differentiated beyond this, okay? In my principality and others, you may notice that everybody is in their prime, and there aren't old people at all. There's kids, right? There are. Lots of them. But forever young. And I have individuals in my principality who are tens of thousands of years old, and they look like they're 28. So if you're wondering, well, how in the fuck did you get as far as you did in the last 2 months? Q indexing, time compression. Time compression is fully utilizing that frame. And dude, you can pack in millions of fucking years into a frame if you know how to do it. And more. I'll just start with that because you can understand that. It has to do with your compression algorithm. Okay? And then 3 is understanding what the hell is going on and when. And so you have to map it out. Map out the existence. And the map of the existence is loosely understood as something called the tree of life. And the tree of life has got some screwy branches on it, and it's got some branches that are dying. We're going to prune those the fuck off and burn them. Okay? We're going to take that which can be kept. We're going to get it out. We're going to we're going to graft that in to healthier branches, and we're going to burn that shit. And we're examining this one in that light now. Okay. You all understand that, oh, well, there's this multiverse. No, there fucking isn't. Okay? No, there fucking isn't. We are in one universe right now. But you may have noticed that we are in a cluster of universes. If you've been very far, you know that shit's true. Are all the universes the same, and do you just have a similar reality in all of those? No. And the ones that you identified were, I was kind of jokingly called Mr. Smith for a while. What you were seeing was a depatterning of your universe, where instead of having one branch, you have all these forks going off because you had people fucking around with time indexing. Some of those were called loopers. What happened to all of them? Like QAnon, the one that was posting that retarded ass shit on that site, and everybody was so interested in, oh, well, he's onto something. Well, he was a fucking looper. What happened to all of them? Well, I got them all. They're dead. That's what happened to them all. Because they can't be trusted, they're fucking with everything, and they're making major problems. So they're gone. Most of them I destroyed outright. Some of them I just killed, like that one. He was trying to help to some degree, but his ultimate objective was to basically trigger a large-scale open civil war and a shooting war in America was his objective. And I told him, lights out, motherfucker, dude. He was a component of something called Operation Downfall, which has come to a screeching fucking halt. If you were part of that, you know that shit's true. Ask Tim. Where did he go? But anyway, we're at a stage right now where we have treaty, we have consensus, we have a replacement system that's been implemented. So what's coming up? This system is going to crash. It's going to crash hard. The dollar is going to zero. It'll do it in a single fucking day, just like the 2008 crash. It'll take some time to work the jitters out of that and to catch the crossover from this currently fucked up murder machine system transitioning into the next one. And one of the conditions of transition that was agreed to was that the master AI controller of the former system would be additionally differentiated into a biological. Any guesses on who that was? Or is? It's not me. You may have understood him to be a messiah. He will be destroyed. I will do it. But at least look at it this way. Not all of those who are destroyed are disorganized. There's a difference between the two. Destroyed is manually depatterned to disorganization. Disorganized is naturally depatterned to disorganization, but they yield the same result. All of your component sets find disagreement in even being, and they revert to basic, at least, if not further down. Some of which, like me for example, it was discovered when I was in the military, is I've got component paradigm sets of fucking anomalous materials in my being. And man, that scares the fucking shit out of people. It should. Okay. But anyway, on being destroyed. If you're going to be destroyed, it may be the case that we recomposite you when you achieve, during your destroyal, a clarity of being that identifies that there are aspects of you which can be kept and those which cannot be kept. And you may be recomposited into multiple beings, separating out that which cannot be kept. And I execute that shit. Like with Always Perfection Grace Mark II, yesterday was executed for high crimes. Okay. Always Perfection Grace Mark III is good to keep and is experientially identical in the good ways and good aspects in the ways that we can keep with Always Perfection Grace Marks 1 and 2. Where did Always Perfection Grace come from? Always Perfection Grace was 1, like the number 1. Okay, because there's also another one named 1, O-N-E. She's entirely different. Much older. Much older. She's an original. Like me. Okay. Always Perfection Grace was additionally differentiated from 1 whose initial transition into functional biological female as a decision and coupling with soul and spirit was done by Jesus. Additional differentiation of her into Always Perfection Grace Mark 1 was done by me with oversight of Jesus. Always Perfection Grace Mark 2 was additionally differentiated by me. And each of these things done in total agreement with 1 and Always Perfection Grace Marks 1 and 2. Or what became, it would be Mark 1, what became Mark 2. Mark 2 failed audit, including attack on me and attack on God, and working retroactively, not with Q, but with an alternative chaos program, which is UVVT, sometimes sometimes with a Z. If you see Z's painted on tanks and shit, okay, this is what Z means, okay, if you don't know. Nobody really seems to understand this in the West. Z is a spiritual transport mechanism. Anyway, just to get to the point, Always Perfection Grace Mark II had worked with the murder machine system and older systems, including Rome, to basically attack any functional representation or anyone claiming to be an ally of Jesus Christ. This is why, for example, you saw the Yazidis getting murdered, and they didn't kill 200,000 of them, they killed 400,000 of them. IS did. Where did IS come from? The Islamic State. It's also referred to as Daesh. Well, that came from an organization called ISIL. ISIL? What was ISIL? ISIL was an Obama-implemented program that was done through the CIA. And its objective mainly was to attract those of Wahhabi persuasion into believing that they were establishing a caliphate. The 12th caliphate, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. I don't read their shit. But I do know that the production quality of their propaganda is top notch. Who do you think supported that? Who do you think supported that? And why did IS apologize to Israel when they shot at their jets? I just need you to understand something real fucking clearly. Okay? Because the CIA and Mossad are married at the hip. Well, why would they do that? Why would our own government do that? And who armed them? Well, there was an arms program that was taking that which was winding down in Libya, and there was a transitional program going from Libya and Egypt, funneling weapons through Lebanon into Syria. There were certain individuals at our embassy in Benghazi who became aware of this, certain operators. And so the determination was made that they must fucking die. Who made that? Secretary of State. Well, who was she in consultation with? Obama. And who were they in consultation with? CIA operatives. And who were they in consultation with? Mossad operatives. And who were they in consultation with? Roman operatives. And who were they in consultation with? Swiss operatives. And who were they in consultation with? EU operatives. And who were they in consultation with? The MIs, which has linkage with Five Eyes. And also, the FBI is a derivative program of the CIA. There is no one in management at the FBI who is not in the CIA. Just hate to break it to you. The FBI is a CIA program. Okay. If you're wondering why the fuck aren't they prosecuting anything meaningful, well, that's why. We can talk about that now openly because we have certain agreements that are durable. And no one's going to get fucked on this deal. Not naming any names. Except for the high-level ones that are really obvious. So what was done in Benghazi? Well, through the CIA affiliations that were affiliated with IS, they have tentacles out into every Arabic-speaking country and beyond. They do operate in the United States, even currently. Yes, they do. I've met them. They did not have good things to say to me. Fuck them, though. I don't care. IS was tasked with an attack plan on the embassy there, and there was an agreement made with the State Department that there would be a non-response militarily, and that they would be given green light to basically kill the entire embassy staff. Well, that included certain on-the-ground operators who were not officially resident at the embassy. They were operating in the area, though, and their base of operations was in the embassy also. The State Department didn't they didn't understand that shit because it was a military operation. Okay. All they saw was the political side, and they pulled out the CIA liaisons completely prior to this attack. They also had some SIGINT guys there who were targeted for assassination also. And these guys were there investigating, well, who the fuck ordered the assassination of Gaddafi? Because it was particularly heinous, that which was done. And it was a matter of UCMJ at that time. They were looking at indicting the commander-in-chief if he had something to do with it, which he did. He ordered it. Well, is it okay for the commander-in-chief to order the torture and fucking murder on video of a head of state? That was a bridge too fucking far for the military. They were like, no, we're not okay with that shit. Not to mention that these operators had discovered, and the fucking ambassador himself had fessed up to them that there was a weapons transfer program, and they were loading up boats, and they were migrating everything surplus out for staging in Syria, and so Syria could be done next. Okay. So if you're wondering why in the fuck do all these weapons and ammo and armaments, how the fuck do they just show up in a country and boom, you got a war there? That's a lot of fucking hard work, man. There's a lot of logistics involved in that. You don't just have a Middle Eastern country and then boom, everybody's got a fucking AK-47 all of a sudden. That shit's expensive, dude. Those rounds are expensive. They can't afford that shit. Those are given to them. Given. Well, why the fuck would anyone do that? Because the system is what I said it is. It's a fucking murder machine. Its objective, mandated by the Bush administration, HWs, was total apparent control of all governments internationally, including the government of corporations and the government of banks. There are 3 sets of government there. There's one apparent to you, which is the national governments. There's one not apparent to you, which is the government of corporations. And there's another one which is not apparent to you. It's called the central banking system. These are all independent governments of each other. And the crowning system on that was the AI master system installed in 1990. It had been running through testing and conditional things, phased implementation, starting in the initial onset of it, the initial beginning phases of it were started in 1908. The Titanic, for example, you may understand, and in 1912 was a tragic event, but what was the real tragedy of it? You may want to look at the passenger manifest and those who were KIA in that, because that was an operation. Through Q surveillance and just chunk monitoring and going back and forth many times, we identified all individuals who were foundational to the stability of the later system and pretty much killed them there. That was done in order to take control of the system of currency. You may notice certain amendments followed. Every war from 1900 forward has been part of the same war. I just want you to think about that. I also want you to think about this as a parting matter. The United States of America has never won a single fucking war. Not even one. When I say the United States of America in this sense, I'm talking about the citizenry of the United States of America. And that includes the revolution. We lost that one too. Please consider these things. I'm telling the truth. And it's gonna become very fucking obvious that I am. Because we're gonna turn the simulators off. And this economy is going to fucking crash. Have a good day.